It's 9 o'clock. Calling this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. First item's the consent agenda. The commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. Last month's minutes appear to be the only thing on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, show of hands, aye. And opposed?
That was 6-0 in favor.
All right, 6-0. Regular agenda, subdivision plats. The Plan Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. First, replat in Block G, College Hills South Business Park Addition, Section 2. Request for approval of a first replat in Block G, College Hills South Business Park Addition, Section 2, being 3.632 acres located on West Loop 306 between South College Hills Boulevard and Billy Boland Drive.
Good morning, Planning Commissioners. This is Jeff Fisher with the Principal Planner with the Planning Department. Our first case today is the first replat in Block G, College Hill South Business Park Addition, Section 2. It's a replat of 2 tracts into 2 new platted lots. And actually, it was originally 1 tract when they did a purchase and sale between these 2 owners. This piece was actually by error dedicated to these property owners here and then eventually sold back. So that's why you see that flag in the middle here. So this will be replatted into 2 tracts, future development for commercial. The zoning is CGCH. The future land use is commercial, and it's in District 5, Lane Carter in the Vista Del Arroyo neighborhood. So lot 1 is going to be 1.801 acres and lot 2 will be 1.831 acres, total of 3.632 acres. This one's fairly straightforward. There's no notifications required. It's commercial, no variances required. It's just platting simply into 2 lots. Staff believes that the plat conforms with the comprehensive plan. It's within a 1.5 mile commercial corridor on the north side of West Loop 306. There's an existing sidewalk that was built inside the property, and that will connect to a future TXDOT sidewalk, which should be built sometime in 2021 or after. So that sidewalk will need an easement. That'll be a condition of approval we'll get to in a minute. Direct abutting access the lot has on lot 306. There's the existing sidewalk, so that meets statement D in the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance for safe vehicular and pedestrian circulation. There is a required water and sewer main that will be installed, so that'll satisfy statement G, and the efficient layout of lots will continue to have direct access on West Loop 306 with frontage. So that's just the logical order pattern of development, statement O. This is looking at the sidewalk that's already on the property, looking east and west on Loop 306. This is northwest of the subject property. You have Goodwill and that shopping plaza over here. And then in the northeast portion of the lot faces the retirement community here, not as a requirement of the plat, but when they get to permitting, because this is a residential use, the retirement home, they will need to put a 6-foot high privacy fence here. So we're just going to note that for now, but that will not be a condition of the plat. It'll be at the permit stage.
Yeah.
Staff.
Are you there?
Oh, yes, go ahead. Yes,
I'm sorry. You were cutting out on me. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So staff recommends approval of a first replat in Block G, College Hill South Business Park Addition, Section 2, subject to 7 conditions of approval. Provide the tax certificate, provide a public access easement for that existing sidewalk, submit a drainage study, prepare and submit plans and install a new water main. Number 5, a new sewer main or a septic system by the County Health Department. Engineering can speak more on that if you need that. install a new water and wastewater lines to each lot, and install a fire hydrant. So this concludes staff's presentation. Any questions or comments?
Anyone have questions for the staff? All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Jeff, please stop sharing your screen so we can see everybody.
Pardon me.
Hi, this is Casey McBroom with Cross Engineering.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay,
Morning.
sorry. I'm here representing the development and was just here to answer any questions.
Okay. Anyone have questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Do we have anyone else that wishes to speak on this case? If you would, please come forward. All right. I'm going to close public comment. Anyone wish to make a motion or share their opinion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye by show of hand. Opposed?
Six zero in favor.
All right, 6-0. Next case, first replat in Block 2, Kinley Addition. Request for approval of first replat in Block 2, Kinley Addition, being 0.850 acres located southeast of North Bell Street and East Houston Hart Expressway frontage road, and a variance from Chapter 10.3A2 of the Land Development Subdivision Ordinance to maintain a paving width of 36 feet and no sidewalk in lieu of the required 40 feet for Ellis Street, an urban local street.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sherry Bailey, Principal Planner. You have before you I'm hearing feedback, I'm sorry. You have before you the plat for Kinley Addition. It should look familiar to you, in that you have the abandonment of the alley, which is underneath the building about 2 months ago. That has received City Council approval, and this is following one of the conditions to replat the property. It is replatting lots 1, 2, 18, 19, and the south part of lot 17, and adding in that newly abandoned alley. The zoning is CGCH, the future land use is commercial. This is in District 3, Mr. Thomas's district, and in the Paul Ann neighborhood. This is the plat showing exactly where the building is and everything that will be included into that. There comes to about 0.850 acres. There was no notification required, and they are asking for a variance on the paving width of Ellis Street. There also, in going over this on late Friday, even though North Bell Street has just been rebuilt by the city, it does not meet our standards within our thoroughfare plan and our subdivision ordinance. And so we are handling from an administrative standpoint the variance on the existing New Bell Street. The proposed plat conforms with a comprehensive plan. It is property located adjacent to East Houston Hart Expressway. It has direct and abutting access to 2 streets and then onto East Houston Hart. Again, it's part of that CGCH commercial along North Bell. And again, the City Council did approve the alley abandonment. It conforms with the intent and purpose statements, Statement F, to provide systematic and accurate record of land development. Statement K, to ensure that properties are accurately determined and established on a recorded plat, the element abandonment included in that. And Statement O, efficient layout of lots, and will continue to have direct access. This is a picture, and I couldn't get all of it in, so it's in 2 pieces. This is the front building that fronts on North Bell Street. And then this is the back area. The alley was right about in there. And this does front on Ellis Street. The rationale for the Chapter 10 curb and street pavement variance, we believe that the street width, the 36 feet in lieu of the 40 feet, and it does not have a sidewalk, has been meeting the needs of the area, the commercial area, for a number of years. Even though it does not have a curb and gutter, that area of the street is where a number of large commercial heavy equipment firms are located, and they go in and out all along that street. The applicant believes adding the 4 feet or 2 feet on his side would be unnecessary. The street traffic is handled. It's been existing for a number of years, and it would throw off the balance of the street paving. And we believe on the variance, it will not have any effect on the existing ordinances and the traffic needs. Staff is recommending approval of the first replat in Block 2 of Kenley Addition and the variance on Ellis Street, subject to 3 conditions. And staff would like to also add a 4th condition on here, and I'll explain that in just a moment. The applicant needs to provide a copy of the tax certificate, prepare and submit plans for Ellis Street, or be granted the variance, install new water and wastewater lines if needed to those back lots. And then the 4th one we would like to add is that the front build-out line reflects the existing 10-foot setback for the existing building, but we'd like to have a build-out line of 25 feet, which meets the code on the plat. If that building is ever torn down or replaced, it will have to meet that 25 feet. And with that, I'm closing my presentation. Are there any questions?
I have I'm sorry. I have a couple. The existing building, you're saying you would essentially want to grant a variance on the setback of the existing improvements, so that if those improvements were raised in the future, the setback would be greater?
But what we would like is a condition on there is if that building was torn down and a new building was built, it would have to meet the required 25-foot setback from North Bell Street. It presently does not. It's just a little over 10 feet.
Okay.
And I think today we have to meet the ordinances. So even if this says 10 feet and somebody were to come in and build a new building, we would have to meet the 25. Right. The only reason staff was asking for it was just to clarify for any future developers that come in, they pull up the plat, they see 10 thinking, oh, that's what it is. And we would have to tell them no. So it would just be for clarity. The building obviously is allowed to stand in its current condition today without any issues.
When were those improvements constructed?
The improvements to the building or to the street?
I'm sorry. when was the structure, when was the building structure constructed?
Oh, it's been existing for 40 years or longer.
Okay, perfect. All right, that's all I've got. Anyone else have questions for the staff? All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment. If you wish to speak on this case, please come forward.
Good morning, Russell with SKG Engineering. I would just ask that y'all would approve the variance on the street with improvements and approve the plat as presented, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Russell. Anyone have questions for Mr. Gully? All right. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comment. Anyone have thoughts or wish to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented, including the variance.
Okay.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff with the variance on the street, on the Ellis Street. All in favor, say aye. By show of hands, aye. And opposed?
That was 6-0 in favor.
All right, 6-0. Related comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning. City Council has final authority for approval of comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings. CP 20-04, 1209, 1213, 1217 South Oak Street. A request for approval of an amendment to the City of San Angelo Comprehensive Plan, changing certain lands from the neighborhood center future land use to the industrial future land use. And 0.59 acres located at 1209, 1213, and 1217 South Oak Street. Do you want me to read the next case as well?
Yes, please.
Z 20-10, 1209, 1213, and 1217 South Oak Street. Request for approval of a rezoning from the general commercial zoning district to the light manufacturing zoning district, being 0.59 acres located at 1209, 1213, and 1217 South Oak Street.
Thank you, sir. Shelley Pascal, City Planner. These properties, they are proposing both a comp plan amendment and a rezoning. The rezoning is from general commercial to light manufacturing, and the comp plan is from neighborhood center to industrial. It is within District 3, Harry Thomas. It is within the Fort Concho neighborhood. This is the zoning and the future land use map. As you can see, it is located within the general commercial and in the neighborhood center. I did want to show in a zoomed out portion or maps showing both the zoning and the land use. As you can see, there's the closest light manufacturing is several blocks north and over here in the water treatment. And also same with the land use maps. Just going through a couple of photos. This is the subject property. This is a current residence directly south and abutting the subject property. Just on the other side of that house, directly south of that house, is a commercial property. And north of the subject property is an existing house. However, the applicant has purchased this house and it will be demolished. This is a commercial property north, also north of the subject property. The next couple of photos are residents that are directly west and adjoining across the alley from the subject property. Here's another residence. And I wanted to show you a couple of the commercial properties within the area. This commercial property here is actually across South Oaks. As of these are also. And this one's directly across South Oaks from the subject property. I did mail out 20 notifications. I did not receive any in favor nor opposition. A little background on this property. Excuse me, let me move y'all around. On the property at 1217 South Oaks, back in November 1977, there was a zone change from RS2 to CG with the conditional options for vehicle service, sales, and repair. Then in January 1986, there was a request for a zone change from CG general commercial to light manufacturing. However, this zone change, which is the exact zone change we're looking at today, it was denied. But at the same meeting, there was a special permit that was approved to allow manufacturing of awnings, subject to the condition that a privacy fence must be installed and there be no outside storage. With the approved special permit, the existing property at 1217 South Oaks is allowed, with the exception that currently that special permit is in violation due to their outdoor storage. Now the property wants to expand its business onto the 2 adjoining lots directly north of the subject property. Those properties are 1209 and 1213 South Oaks. A little rationale, the compatibility with plans and policies. The comp plan from neighborhood center to industrial would not be consistent with the surrounding development. However, take note, there is commercial uses in this area though. The subject property would be a better fit within neighborhood center due to the property being directly adjacent to a well-established home and residential area. The proposed use is not complementary in this area and does not support the intent of the comp plan. The proposed use, which is manufacturing of awnings, isn't integrated with the other commercial or residential on the block. Given this location near the residential, staff does not believe industrial would be a good fit. Consistent with the zoning ordinance, the existing use at 1217 is allowed by the special permit that was approved in 1986. However, the proposed expansion within the same business is not allowed on the other 2 adjacent lots. This would require the approval of the requested rezoning, but it is not an appropriate location given the proximity to the homes. The zoning ordinance purpose states it needs to prevent or minimize land use incompatibilities and conflicts among different land uses. The proposed rezoning would be in conflict with the statement and purpose statement, and it could be unsightly and noisy. Compatibility with the surrounding area. The property is located in an area that does have mixed commercial and residential use. There is a single family residential neighborhood directly across the alley, directly west across the alley from the subject property. There is also a single family home directly south of the subject property. The expansion of the subject parcels does not fit in the surrounding neighborhood. And the changed condition, the neighborhood center has not developed on this property, but the long-term goal for this area is as such. This area could be better utilized with a less industrial use that could serve the adjoining neighborhood. Since 1986, there was a special permit granted to allow the current use. And since 2009, the subject property has been designated as neighborhood center. Now the applicant is wanting to expand onto more lots, and this expansion would not be compatible with the surrounding area or the zoning ordinance or the land use designation. Some of the effects on the natural environment. The existing use of the subject property already has an impact due to the noise and dust produced by the specific use, and the expansion of this use would only create more of an impact. Community need. We do acknowledge that San Angelo, there is a need for manufacturing companies. However, with the immediate adjacent established neighborhood, this location is not the appropriate location for such a use. This is a retail commercial area, and the use would be more appropriate in an industrial zoned area. The development patterns, the existing development pattern in the immediate area along South Oaks is both residential and commercial, as we've acknowledged. The existing business is allowed, but the expansion of this use as light manufacturing would not be logical for the surrounding area. The proposed use could have a negative impact due to the increase in delivery and manufacturing activities due to the expansion. Therefore, the city staff, we are recommending denial of both the rezoning from general commercial to light manufacturing and denial of the comprehensive plan amendment change, changing the future land use designation from the neighborhood center to industrial. Any questions?
Anyone have questions for the staff?
Terry.
I have a question for you, Shelley. Okay, so in 1986, there was a special use permit that was given to this property.
That's correct.
And then you said in 2009, it was changed to neighborhood. How?
That's when our comp plan designated this area for neighborhood center. And they did request that in 86, at the same time that they requested the special permit, they did request a rezoning from the general commercial to the light manufacturing, and that change was denied, but they did grant that special permit on that one parcel.
Okay.
And to add on to that, Terry, just real quick, in today's ordinance, we do have the special use provision, but the special use in our ordinance has to create a transition. And so we went through several different options with the applicant, and they are available as well. But we went through several different options, and we're just not sure that a special use would work in this instance. So we've gone through a couple things with them, and they have decided to seek the rezoning. So.
Okay. Now, with that rezoning, if that were given to them, would that take care of some of the outside storage where it would now be inside?
That's probably more a question for the applicant. That's what we were told, that they were adding a building for storage.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just with that zone change, that would change the outdoor storage also. Aspect of able to, it's an unlimited outdoor storage at that point with that zoning district.
Sherry, I don't know if anyone else is having problems understanding you,
Yeah.
but I did not understand anything you said.
Let me wrap it. Shelley, your voice is real crackly right now. I don't know. It may just
Sound
be
like a robot.
Yeah. So what she was stating is that also by allowing your ML zoning, you're also allowing unlimited outdoor storage. So not only would it allow the building, but then they could, on the rest of the site, have unlimited outdoor storage as well. So it's two-sided, I guess, there, and she wanted to make that point.
Okay. What, can you guys outline some of the uses that are allowed in light manufacturing that are not allowed in neighborhood center?
Yes, we could probably go through some of those. One thing I want to say is they are currently zoned general commercial. So currently they are general commercial. What we're talking about, the neighborhood center, is their future land use.
I'm sorry, are all three of the sites zoned general commercial?
Yes, sir, currently. That is correct.
Okay. Okay, so what's permitted in general commercial that is, or what is not permitted in general commercial that is permitted in light manufacturing?
I'm going to say there's a lot of stuff that is general commercial versus light manufacturing. And I'll just have to go through the use table. I'm sorry that we didn't prepare that for you.
That's okay.
Community services is allowed in CGCH, and it's a conditional use in ML. I'm trying to go down to a little bit larger. Bed and breakfast.
Can you hear me better a little bit?
No, you're still breaking up really bad. I don't know what it is. So the ML would allow industrial services, which are service firms, for industrial businesses or consumer machinery, equipment, or byproducts that CG would not currently allow. It obviously allows light manufacturing, firms involved in assembly, light manufacturing, processing, fabrication, and packaging of goods that would not be allowed currently in CG. It allows manufacturing, oh, that's the same one, warehouse and freight movement, and wholesale trade. Those two would be conditional uses currently, but would be allowed. So it's a little bit, it's a heavier use.
Yeah. Okay.
What is currently, but CG, and if we go back, and we don't have to, but if we go back to that zoomed out area, you will see a large portion of this area is CGCH currently. This little strip is
Right.
CG. But we just thought that light manufacturing might be a little heavy for this area in our. So if you'll look there on the left-hand side, you'll see that there's some intermittent pockets of RS2 zoning. And then
Yes.
the darker purple is CGCH. You can see the subject properties are sort of a lighter shade, as well as the block directly south. Those
Yes.
properties are CG. But the closest light manufacturing is at the railroad and then the water treatment plant as well.
Okay. Does anyone have other questions for the staff?
I had one more question. In the presentation, Shelley, I think you said that there was no opposition from the 20 that you sent out. Is that correct?
I did receive a couple of phone calls. It was just more kind of questioning what was going on, because I did place a sign on the property.
Okay, thank you.
Got that?
Yeah, I was going to say, does anyone need me to translate that?
Yes, I got that.
And then the applicant is available, so.
Okay, we're going to open it up for public comment.
Yes, this is David Mazur. I'm helping Doug Tungett with this project. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Okay. I'd just like to say Doug has been in that business, and his dad for 34 years. They've been a mainstay here in San Angelo. Probably a lot of the stuff that's on y'all's houses he has built. He builds lightweight gates. They build awnings. It's not a big manufacturing place where you have trucks coming in and steel and only thing that's in the building is a welder and a cutting torch, basically. There's no big machinery running or anything like that. And so what he wants to do, he realizes that the property, and the other thing I'd like to say is he's been there 34 years. He's never had a complaint from any of his neighbors for any reason at all, as far as noise, anything like that. But he realizes now that he needs to clean the place up. His dad passed away several years ago. He's taken it over. He wants to really clean up the neighborhood, get it back in line. So in order to do that, you know, he wants to build, he bought the two properties to the right of him, to the north, I'm sorry. And he wants to build a building in there where he can encompass all of the stuff that's out in the yard, put it inside of the buildings. There won't be any outside storage. They're going to pour new driveways, put a new front on the building, put a privacy fence all the way around the building. So in other words, it's going to be so much better than what it is right now. And the thing is, he already has special use permit to fabricate on 1217. The other part will only be warehouse storage. So when they do fabricate something, they need a place to put it. So he wants to put it in that other building. So there really won't be any manufacturing going. It'll just be storage and office, and put two offices in over there. And the other thing I'd like to say is, if you look across the street, A plus Fabrication has been there. They do the exact same thing that Doug does, except they do it out of stainless steel. They have bigger machinery. They have bats and stuff in there. And what I don't understand is where the cutoff was. How can they do that? And right across the street, it's a different zoning. It seems to me like for planning and all that, you want to be consistent with what you're doing for the general public and keep everybody in line. And so, you know, and on that street on the west side of Oaks where he is, there's only 3 residential houses on it. On the other side, where there's more manufacturing, there's actually 10 residential houses that front Oak Street. And all up and down that street, it's all commercial. Even if you go back another block from there, there's actually more commercial buildings and stuff where A Plus has, they almost take up a whole half of a city block. He's only on the front part that butts up to Oak Street. The other thing I have a concern about is this neighborhood NC or whatever they were calling that. I mean, they did that in 2009. In 11 years, what has happened to that property over there? I've lived here all my life. There has not been one new business, one new house. Nothing is going on that property over there. It's just, you know, I don't think it will ever do that. So to tell him, you know, that everything else is commercial and to deny what he needs to do, where he really wants to clean it up, make it nicer for the neighbors, make it a better frontage for the street. I think it's a win-win for the city. The mayor, the city council, everybody wants to promote businesses and expansion and stuff like that. And the difference is he's really not going to do any more fabrication. That's not the purpose of it. He's not going to hire 20 more people and put in more machinery and all that. He's going to stay just with what he has, but he wants to be able to clean up the property. And the only way to do it is to build a building so he can put all that stuff in it and make it nicer for the street. Anybody have any questions?
David, would he not be able to do that in general commercial, to build that building and do the storage?
No, the city's saying no.
Okay, why would that be, Hillary?
Because it's an associated with the use overall. If it's offices for a school, then it's a school office. If it is offices for a manufacturing, then it's an office manufacturing. So, and like the use is together. If this was a totally separate business that was storage and offices on a CG lot, that would be permitted. But this is one use. So I can't think of a good example, but this rezoning, if approved, would allow them to make this expansion. So that's the way we that's the way we talked about going with them.
So the only way
I have a question for staff. Oh, sorry. What is the zoning on A Plus fabrication right across the street? What is their zoning? Is it like manufacturing, or is it CG just like this?
CGCH. So it's general commercial, heavy commercial across the street.
Just right across the street. I mean, how can the city split that street right there and say you can do what you want on one side of the street and on the other side, and they have the same residential people behind them as this business has right here? I don't understand the thinking behind that. Why would it be separated like that? I mean, we're talking 60 feet.
Yeah.
Is that consistent with a plot plan and planning? And that seems real inconsistent to me. You're giving one person something, and then the guy right next door can't do it.
Well, and if those properties in that area were to look to rezone, we would recommend neighborhood center at this point, just because we have to look toward the future land use. So they're not looking for a rezoning, so that at this point they would stay CGCH.
Is A Plus's use today allowed under CGCH?
I would have to look into their use. If David is correct, they might have to go to ML if they were building a new building today. But currently, they do not have any outdoor storage. Shelley actually showed a picture of that building.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. I disagree with that. They have a huge building behind their other that's full. I drove around all that property.
Yeah.
It's all over it. They have a fence around it, and it's all outside. So.
Okay. So Hillary, what you're saying is, in order for this company to continue clean up their area, they're wanting to build, they can't build an office building or storage building unless we change everything to light manufacturing.
That is correct. We went through a bunch of different options with the applicant, trying to figure out the best option, trying to help them get what they really wanted. It's hard with this being mostly neighborhood center in the commercial and the future land use plan, and currently zoned CG. That's a pretty big step from our standpoint, going from neighborhood center to industrial. So we talked to them. The applicant decided this was their best option, so we brought it forward to the board for your consideration.
So right now, are they only CG or are they CGCH?
The subject property is currently CG. Around them is CGCH.
Okay.
Okay. This is, let's continue. Are there any other folks that wish to comment on this case for public comment?
I have a question when you're ready.
Yeah, sure.
What is the applicant's request specifically?
They want to rezone to light manufacturing, which is a more intense zoning than even CGCH, which presents the problem. David, thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and close public comment and kind of take some thoughts and ideas. This is a tough case because you have a very well-established, long-standing business in an area that the city sees differently long-term. And I certainly don't think it's fair to punish the folks that have been there that want to add a little bit to their business. And it sounds like an opportunity for us to clean up an area, maybe eliminate or reduce some outdoor storage that we don't want to see in that area of the city. Now, having said that, having light manufacturing back up to single family homes is not preferred. I would think that we'd want a buffer of some sort of a more transitional zoning than to back this up to homes long term. Now, that doesn't change, in my opinion, what's been done there for the last 35 years. So to me, this makes a lot more sense as a special permit of sorts that allows this landowner to continue using his business as he has forever and expanding it to clean it up, as opposed to rezoning it. If we rezone it, we don't know what could happen to this lot in 10 or 20 years or 30 years if and when this business goes away or moves. I don't think we necessarily want to subject the neighborhood to all of the different allowed uses under light manufacturing long term, but I certainly think that allowing the landowner that's there to continue using his business as he has is a reasonable request. So is there a way to allow the special permit to be, whatever special access they were granted before, to be utilized for the expansion of their business?
And I will say that that's one option we looked at, was a special use. The current special use provision of our ordinance states that you have to show transition to provide a special use on a new property. And at this,
I think building an office space would achieve that, would it not?
I mean, I guess if you specifically made that building office and storage, but I think when we spoke to the applicant, that's what his plan was now, but he didn't want to be limited to that in the future.
Okay.
Is the special use permit or the special use stays with the property the same as a zone change?
That is correct. That is correct. So it stays there.
So it's the same thing as changing the zone.
But it limits what can be put there, as opposed to the broad spectrum of light manufacturing.
Right.
If someone wanted a welding shop there, that would be an option down the road, but maybe not I can't think of any other uses that would be light manufacturing, but it's a more intense commercial zoning that doesn't look consistent with what's around there. Sure. And CGCH is very broad zoning. I think zoning at CGCH would make sense personally if it's allowed, even though that's a zoning that I know the city's trying to get rid of.
Right. So
I Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
What I see is, in my mind, so if we do a special use permit, then that would allow them to build the building, do whatever. You would have to stipulate in there what goes in there. I would just assume without any opposition from all the neighbors that are around there, I would just assume change it to light manufacturing, cut the puppy's tail off and not just 1 inch at a time. Go ahead and change it to light manufacturing. He's planning to build his fence around the property, do all that, so it is separate. There are no one in the neighborhood that is opposed to what he's doing. He's been a good neighbor to everyone that's there. To me, I would think light manufacturing is fine.
Did you make a
Okay.
motion?
Yes, I make that
I would
motion.
second that motion.
Okay, thank you.
And that's for approval of the comp plan amendment and the rezoning. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, both A and B.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the rezone of this lot to light manufacturing. All in favor, say aye by show of hands. And opposed.
So that was 5-1.
Okay, great. All right, let's move on to the next one. Related rezonings and conditional use. The city council has final authority for approval of rezonings. The planning commission has final authority for approval of conditional uses. Appeals may be directed to the city council. Z20-09, 1901 to 2023 and 2105 Knickerbocker Road. Request for approval of a rezoning from light manufacturing zoning district to the general commercial zoning district located at 1901 to 2023 and 2105 Knickerbocker Road, being 7.01 acres on Knickerbocker Road between Industrial Avenue and Commerce Street. All right, Hillary. Do you want me to read the other one as well?
Please, yes, sir.
C20-10, 1901 to 1923 Knickerbocker Road, or 2023, excuse me. A request for approval of a conditional use to allow approximately 3,500 square feet of retail sales and service floor area within a building in a light manufacturing zoning district and located at 1901 to 2023 Knickerbocker Road, being 4.694 acres on Knickerbocker Road between Industrial Avenue and Commerce Street.
Good morning again, Jeff Fisher, Principal Planner. We're going to do these two cases as one since they pertain to portions of the same property. So this is a zone change 2009 and a conditional use 2010. The zoning is for both properties. So it's the plaza at 1901 to 2023 Knickerbocker, and then Stadium Lanes Bowling Alley, which is 2105 Knickerbocker Road. The conditional use is just for the shopping plaza 1901 to 2023 Knickerbocker Road. So the rezoning, both properties are 7.01 acres, and the conditional use is only on the 4.694 acre property. What triggered this is you probably, some of you have been here for a while on the board. Bush's Chicken, Chick-fil-A, a number of other commercial businesses along the south end of Knickerbocker have done rezonings and conditional uses over the last 4 to 5 years. This area, for a long time was zoned light manufacturing, but it never really grew that way. Some of the uses down here, like Gandy Inc. And some warehousing would fit in the ML, but a lot of these uses, especially in the shopping plazas that were built, were really more commercial oriented. And the old, before it was the old ML and M1 zoning used to allow commercial uses within the industrial ML district. And then in 2000, we changed our zoning ordinance to say that wasn't allowed. So a lot of these retail businesses were already allowed. So what triggered this is a few months ago, the applicant had come in and wanted to put in approximately 3,500 square foot, the old Zentner's daughter, keep a restaurant in part of it, but then the 3,500 square feet of that, turn it into a retail store. Well, anything that was pre-existing was considered a lawful conditional use, but anything new lost that status with the ML zoning behind it. So what we're doing today is the conditional use would be allow the applicant to expedite their permitting process and allow the retail store to go in. It's going to be a furniture store. And then once that conditional use gets approved, the rezoning will continue on to City Council, rezone the whole properties to CG, and that'll allow all of the retail uses in the future without having to do this each time. So let's start with the rezoning. and it's in District 5, Lane Carter in the ASU College Hills area. So the future land use is commercial, and the current zoning, as I mentioned, is ML. This is looking east on Knickerbocker. There's the old Zentner's Daughter, and there's Stadium Lane's bowling alley to the west. So the future, so this was all Zentner's Daughter. So the east side, which is from your view west, this will be the future restaurant in here. And then this will be the retail store. So it's the retail store that's triggering all of this today. This is Stadium Lanes, and then this is looking north at the stadium. We received one response in favor from the school district, none opposed on both. So let's start with the zoning. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning. It's compatible with the commercial future land use. This is about a 1.5 mile stretch along Knickerbocker Road. So all of these predominantly are commercial uses in these retail plazas. The lots will comply with the CG standards. There's more than enough parking. You're surrounded by retail commercial uses and restaurants along this corridor. As mentioned, the ML zoning is no longer reflective of this area. It's really trended commercial, and the future land use is commercial, so it just makes sense. There's no expansion of the existing building. The proposed uses will be located in the building. As mentioned, there's more than enough parking there. And no change to the development patterns. TXDOT there is a sidewalk there now, and TXDOT will be continuing, or pardon me, there will be a sidewalk probably within the next year or two along there. So we believe that it's just good pedestrian access, vehicular access, etc. Here's the 3,500 square foot area. There's the proposed business, so it's going to be located in that area in blue. And this was a floor plan that was given to us for just for your viewing purposes only. On the conditional use, a lot of the criteria is the same, so I'm just going to move through this very fast. There's no impacts on the surrounding area. As mentioned, it's interior renos only. The lots comply with the CG standards. There's adequate parking. You're surrounded by retail commercial uses. No effects on the environment, community need development patterns, exactly the same as the zoning, so we believe that it meets all those criteria. Staff recommends approval of a rezoning from the light manufacturing ML zoning district to the general commercial CG zoning district on both properties, and approval of a conditional use to allow approximately 3,500 square feet of retail sales and service floor area in the light manufacturing ML zoning district just on 1901 and 2023 Knickerbocker Road, subject to 2 conditions of approval. So number 1, this is for the conditional use. The applicant shall obtain a building permit for interior renovations and change of occupancy for the new furniture store, and they're going through that process now. And number 2, the applicant shall submit a development plan to the planning director delineating a pedestrian connection between the existing building and the future TXDOT sidewalk to be constructed adjacent to Knickerbocker Road. So as TXDOT puts in that sidewalk, what we're asking for is basically continue a concrete sidewalk from where the new one's going to go perpendicular over the grass, get to where the paved parking area is, and then do a striped connection. You probably see this on a lot of the new developments. That's our current site plan standard. And they can give that to us when they submit their development plan for this project. This concludes staff's presentation. Any questions or comments? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Jeff,
All right, anyone have questions for the staff? Here we go. Sorry.
I have a question for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're wanting to do the conditional use because Planning Commission can go ahead right now and approve that, and they can move forward.
Correct. The zoning would take another 4 to 6 weeks, so this will just allow them to move forward on that property.
Okay, so when the zoning does take effect, and we still have, I mean, what happens? The conditional use will be what the zoning is. So does it just show up in perpetual, I don't know, does it go away? Does it stay there? What happens with it?
Well, once they get the approval, since they're going through the permitting process, like special uses, they have 12 months to, since there's a permit required, they'll have 12 months to meet those conditions. And so they'll end up fulfilling those conditions anyway through the permitting process. And so in a roundabout way, the conditional use will be approved. and will still sit on the books, but they've already fulfilled those conditions. And so then the rezoning, the advantage of the rezoning is it'll allow not only that unit, but all of the units in the property to have commercial uses without having to worry about this.
So one of our discussions, just so you're aware, one of our discussions has been potentially in the rezoning ordinance to possibly take away the conditional use so that it doesn't just sit there underlying for clarity, but we have not made that decision yet. So possibly when the rezoning goes into effect, the conditional use could just go away.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have questions for the staff?
Make a motion to approve.
I got to open it up for public comment first.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So I'm going to open it for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case, please come forward.
Well, I'm Mary Jane Stedman. I'm the applicant. I'm acting managing partner for Alexander Construction Company, the owner of the property. We're happy to have the city working with us to help us through and offering the conditional use as an option to help us move forward quickly. I think we've all worked together well, and looking forward to moving forward on the project. We just have one concern, and that's about the conditions that were added for us to be able to move forward. And our main concern is we don't know the TXDOT plan. We've not seen the future planning. We don't know what the sidewalk will look like and where it's going. We can easily, we can meet the first condition, which is we need to get our permit. Obviously, we'll get that before we move forward to get our occupancy. But we don't know what TXDOT's plan looks like. So we can submit a drawing and we can submit a development plan of where we would like to cut into that sidewalk. But we certainly don't want to spend the money. You all know the price of concrete. We don't want to go build a cut into an imaginary sidewalk that isn't there yet.
Right. And
then just have it torn out later. If you've seen what's going on across the street where they're digging up over on SAISD's side, I don't know what's going on, but I assume that's TXDOT putting in a walkway. And if that's what it is, they've got machinery taking out 5 to 8 foot chunks of the ground and all the way through to put in the sidewalk. So our concern is that we would spend the money on a cut just to have it torn out. And we don't know when that sidewalk's coming in, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, never. So that's our only concern, is on that second condition, that we actually build the sidewalk before we can get our occupancy for this tenant. We could have this building turn around in 2 or 3 months and have someone in, but our condition is we need to put in this concrete. That's the way I'm reading it, that we're being asked to put in the concrete.
Jeff Fisher, Principal Planner. I wanted to address Mary Jane's point, and that's a good one. Staff does have a copy of the TXDOT sidewalk construction plans for the area. So I think I'm open to suggestions too, and I can leave it open to our department to work with the applicant on providing those plans, or having her connect to TXDOT, and then just building it up to where TXDOT's going to put it in, if that's reasonable. But we do have a copy of those plans, and I believe it's a very short area. So from where that sidewalk's going to go to basically the end of the curb. So basically it's from where the grass is, somewhere in the middle of that right of way, to where the curb is, where the paved parking area is. So it might be 5 feet or 8 feet, but it's not a significant distance. So we can work with the applicant on that. And also that condition is only before final occupancy. So if she comes in and gets her development plan, she can start working on those interior renos just before they do the final. So that might give her a little bit more time as well. But I'm open to suggestions on that.
Can we eliminate the sidewalk issue altogether?
I think John has a statement real quick. Hold on one second, and then we'll address Conley's question.
Yeah, I think one thing that in this case, given that we know TXDOT is constructing those sidewalks, but it might be months out, I think in this case, we might be okay with deferring the actual construction of their sidewalk piece that connects to the TXDOT piece until some point in the future. After the TXDOT sidewalk is in, they could possibly do the crosswalk across the parking lot, but then have them delay the actual sidewalk construction until TXDOT's already in and done.
And
Is
we
there
can
not a
refer that
requirement
comment
from,
or condition.
is there not a requirement under the Texas accessibility standards task that for ADA compliance that you have to tie a sidewalk on the frontage to the building? We not already
It depends
have
on
that?
it depends on the circumstances. In this case, if they're constructing it or if they're doing their work before TXDOT has installed a sidewalk, then they may be able to avoid that just because there is no sidewalk there when they're doing their project. And on retrofit situations where they're just remodeling or something like that, they may be exempt anyway. I guess that's typically a decision for outside the city staff to make. That would be a state decision.
Yeah.
But in this case,
Okay.
they might not be required to do that.
Well, and I know
Okay.
that Ms. Stedman just pointed out, but they are moving forward on the sidewalks on Knickerbocker. You can see a couple places where they've started. And so I don't think it'll be too long, but I'm with John. I think a deferral might be the best option. That way we can work with TXDOT to incorporate the two and really save maybe a cost savings as well to both the applicant and TXDOT to be able to do it together. So I think
The only concern I see from what Mary Jane's outlined is I don't think it'd be reasonable to hold the certificate of occupancy for this space if for some reason the plans from TXDOT for that sidewalk haven't been finalized when
Yes,
they
sir.
need to put it in. So,
Absolutely. And then that deferral could allow for that. They could get their CO open and move on down the road. Only
okay.
with an
So it would
obligation
not
to finish
represent
the
a hurdle.
sidewalk. No, correct.
Right.
Does that work for
Okay.
you, MJ?
Well, that's what I was going to respectfully request, that we can put together a plan and show where we would like to put the curb cut and the sidewalk, but that's not going to be final until we see what TXDOT actually does. And it doesn't serve us well as a property owner to invite the public on our property and not provide that curb cut and striping for safety and compliance. And so it will benefit our property way. It's just, we would respectfully request the deferral on that item to keep the idea of keeping our tenant from being able to open, because we haven't put that in yet. I just didn't think they were tied together. So I appreciate that offer.
Okay. All right. Mary Jane, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this case? If not, I'm going to close public comment. All right. So a discussion or a motion? Anyone want to tackle this one?
Make a motion that we approve as presented with deferring the sidewalk until TXDOT is finished and they can coordinate.
Second.
That's for both cases?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And to clarify, it's not going to be a condition of a CO to have that sidewalk completed. Is that correct?
that is correct. We will
Correct.
defer it until
It's
we have
deferred.
TXDOT. Mhm.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve with the deferral on the sidewalk. All in favor, say aye with show of hands. And opposed?
6-0.
All right. Conditional uses. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council, CU 20-11, 411 West Avenue C. A request for approval of a conditional use to allow for household living, 6 units maximum, in the office commercial zoning district on a 0.21 acre property located at 411 West Avenue C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Sherry Bailey again, Principal Planner. I've put up the request in front of you for conditional use 20-10 at 411 West Avenue C. The property in question is this piece of property right here, and this general area around I wanted to show. Across the street is an apartment complex and a single family residential structure. There is an engineering firm and their parking lot, and then residential structures. And over here is a church and a mix of uses with residential structure over here. They are requesting to allow household living, 6 units in an office commercial area, and their conditional use is for 3 duplex units. It's in District 5, Mr. Carter's district, and the Santa Rita neighborhood. Looking at both the future land use and the current zoning, you can see that this entire area is intended to be neighborhood center at some point, which allows a mix of uses, and that's what they're proposing, is to continue their use. The building in front is the one that we're talking about at this point in time. This building burned, and they would like to replace what was originally a house and then was converted to a duplex.
Okay.
This is a picture of the front area. The house was right in front. There's a duplex 2-story here and a duplex 2-story here that are existing. And you can see by the look of the construction that it was built in the late 50s, early 60s. This is the backside off of the alley. Again, you can see the 2-story residential structure here. And this one was a residential structure, although originally it looks like it was a garage and was converted. This required notification. We sent out 13 notices. We did not receive anything in writing, either in favor or opposed. A little additional information for you. Because of the age of this area, it's in the older area of San Angelo. It's in a transition area. The applicant came in to talk to the city about replacing that front building as a duplex. It was a duplex, and they wanted to rebuild it as a duplex after the fire. In trying to establish a timeline was where we ran into some problems just because of the age of the area. We looked at the appraisal district information, ASU's information on student rentals, the library, resident across the street who has been there for 57 years, AEP's records, and then the property owner, what they knew and were told when they bought the property about 15 years ago. The front house and those 2 units in the back were all built according to the appraisal district 1959. The zoning at that time was 2-family. It allowed the 3 individual duplex units. It met the total square footage on the lot, which is 9,000 square feet. And it continued that way until 1986, when there was a request for a zone change from R2 to commercial office. The intent at that time was to develop a commercial office retail area. As I said, that was approved, but it never occurred. It just continued as it was. There's a time lag again in there. And then in talking with AEP, we were able to establish, along with looking at student rental advertisements and the list of student rentals at ASU and in the library, that it had been consistently used as a rental piece of property. What we really couldn't establish was that use of that front structure right at this time, until we got to 1995-96, when AEP replaced the existing meters on that front property and all of the property, and they replaced the meters for units A, B, C, D, E, and F, the 6 units. The zoning code, as you know, changed in January of 2004, and what was classified as household living at that time was a lawful conditional use. Staff felt that we did not have a strong enough history to say without a question that all 6 units were existing at that point in time, even though we had the information from AEP and from the neighbor across the way. The front house, we just didn't know if it changed after the zoning changed to the office commercial, in which case the duplex front unit was the questionable unit. The back 2 units could continue. So going with this request as a conditional use for all 6 units simply establishes everything without question. The rationale for approval, we believe there are no impacts to the surrounding area, which really is a transitional area because the 3 buildings have been existing for a long time and it's just replacing the one that burned. Allowing that front, consistent with the zoning ordinance, allowing the front duplex to be rebuilt, it will have to meet all of the existing setbacks and the parking for that front duplex area. Compatible with the surrounding area. Again, this is a transition area. It does allow a lot of different uses in it, more of a mixed use, and this is consistent with that. Staff does not anticipate any effect on the natural environment. Community need, we've already established, and it has been established that San Angelo is in need of rental property for housing. And the development patterns, there will be no change. What existed before will simply exist again. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use to allow household living, 6 units maximum in the office commercial zoning district, subject to 2 conditions of approval. Number 1, the applicant must obtain a building permit. And number 2, the development is limited to those 6 units. The new duplex must meet all current ordinance requirements, and any future remodeling of the remaining units will be subject to the requirements of the ordinances in effect at that time. Given that, are there any questions?
I have a question for you, Sherry.
Sure.
So my question is, why would we not change the rezoning to a multifamily rezoning instead of a conditional use?
It's very simple. It's a time matter. The applicant wants to get started on rebuilding that duplex unit. This whole area is an income generating area for them.
Sure.
The rezoning takes longer.
How long ago was the fire?
I don't know exactly. The applicant is here. I think it was about 3 months ago, give or take.
Okay. I personally, on this one, unless we were able to, I think it would be better as a zone change.
A zone change will restrict them from getting a building permit for at least another month.
Well, and
maybe longer. Yeah.
We're already waiting 3 months.
And what we've looked at, Terry, is this current zoning we believe is compatible with the area as well as the RM1. So we believe that if these units were to go away, office commercial would be completely compatible with this area as well. So this conditional use would allow both the office commercial uses as well as the multifamily residential. Whereas if we went to multifamily residential, some of those office uses might not exist today. So this is really a kind of a win-win for everybody. We get a mixed use area in an area where probably mixed use is appropriate.
Okay. So with the way that it's zoned right now, then those back 2 standing duplexes are also office commercial?
Yes, they are. They're present zoning.
Okay. And did they have I mean, all 3 of these duplexes, my understanding, were all office commercial.
The zoning, when it was changed in 1986, was all changed to office commercial, but they were able to continue their existing residential duplex use.
Okay, so they were always residential before that. Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else have questions for the staff? I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this case, please come forward.
Yes, this is Dawn and Tracy Kennemer. Can you all hear us? Well,
Yes, yes, ma'am.
We're just asking for this planning commission to approve our request for the conditional use. All we're trying to do is replace what was there. As Ms. Bailey said, those have been existing for many, many years. There was a fire in March, and that's all we're asking. We just want to replace what was already there. There's a great need for this type of housing in San Angelo. We rent these very quickly to ASU students. We rent them to traveling nurses. In this price range that we have, there's a great need in San Angelo. So all we're asking is for your approval to rebuild what was already there.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Russell. Yeah,
Anyone
Russell
else?
Gully, Ben Ficklin Properties, which is kind of the real estate owner of the building where SKG Engineering is. We're not necessarily opposed to this, and we wanted to talk. Terry, we understand you wanting to go to RM1 zoning or a different multifamily zoning, but we think maybe commercial zoning in this area is maybe best suited long-term as this kind of area between the Bryants develops and grows commercially. There are challenges having residential and commercial real close together. And this is something I probably need to speak with the Kennemers about, is their tenants tend to use our dumpster more than using their own trash can. So we were always having issues. We'd come back to the office Monday morning and our dumpster was full and we hadn't been here over the weekend. And now, since unfortunately their building burned down, we haven't been having the full dumpster issue so much. And we kind of watch and see, there's never a trash can, or very seldom trash cans rolled out in front of those houses. So they're generating trash and we know it's coming in our trash can. We look through it and you see their, the address is for that property there. So there are challenges that we've got to work through. Hopefully the new tenants, newer construction, now they'll have, I guess, parking spaces, at least 2 off-street parking spaces. That'll be helpful so that they're not parking out in the street, because they really didn't have parking anywhere around there. The alley's unpaved in the back, and they use that alley for accessing those back units. And then they'll drive the way the alley tees into the back of our property. They'll just continue from the alley through our property. So, and we want to be good neighbors and get along, but we need to kind of have those conversations and be careful about how we respect each other's properties.
Yeah, Russell, we wanted to address real quickly. We have heard concerns before with them using your dumpster, and as soon as we hear that, we address that with them. I did want to let you know that I think as early as a year ago, we requested additional trash cans from the city, and those were delivered. And we do have an on-site manager who does roll those out and is very consistent with rolling those out on a weekly basis. But we are always willing, if you just let us know, we can address that with our tenants. So I don't feel like that should be a problem in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And we're not opposed to this. We think it can be an improvement for the neighborhood to upgrade and have some new construction around.
All right. Anyone else wish to speak on this case?
I was going to ask Mr. Gully something.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Russell?
Yes, sir.
So you're not, you are in favor of this going through?
We're not opposed to it. It's their property rights. I think ultimately the property could function better as a commercial office, turn that space and put a commercial office building there. And, but it's ultimately their property. I think it can function, you know, as a kind of a multifamily deal, you know, I think highest and best use probably is commercial office, but they're in the residential rental business with that property.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Anyone have thoughts or wish to make a motion?
Make your motion to accept as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
6-0.
6-0. Okay. Master Thoroughfare Plan Amendment. City Council has final authority for approval of right-of-way abandonments. Master Thoroughfare Plan Amendment. Consideration of an amendment to the Master Thoroughfare Plan component of the San Angelo Comprehensive Plan to designate South Concho Drive, South Country Club Road, and Country Club Road from a parkway to a major collector street.
Now, bear with me, please. I'm having technical difficulties. Well, I have lost my original, so I'm going to use a backup for the Master Thoroughfare Plan. I know that's still my slides, but evidently it's not
Sherry,
coming
on
up.
my version, if you go down to the bottom right corner, there's a little button for slideshow on my version. It may be the same with yours.
No. Well, if it's all right with you, I have a very short presentation, and Lance, our city engineer, has indicated that he's more than willing to come in, and he has a slideshow also to present. So very simply, this is 4.5 miles of an existing parkway in our master thoroughfare plan. It goes from right at the city limits for Country Club Road, turns into South Country Club Road, comes down to South Concho, and then over to Knickerbocker. This is single member District 1, Tommy Hebert District, and it's the Nasworthy neighborhood. With the Lake Nasworthy Sewer Improvement Project that we're anticipating will get started in 5 to 7 years, we're expecting this area to develop into a lot of residential area and some small commercial area in minimum places. The present designation is a parkway designation, and a parkway designation is intended to carry traffic through an area to recreational or visually beautiful areas to look at nature, etc. It's not conducive to the interchange of additional roads coming in. And that was our feeling that now was the time to change it to a major collector area, because we know there will be development occurring in a number of places. We sent out notices to 130 property owners. I counted the other day, and I have talked to 49 people that have called and asked questions. And had a number of concerns. We've shared those with you, what we have received, and Lance has those also. And there are a number of questions that the property owners have about how the street would develop, what will happen to their individual properties, how will traffic be handled, and maintenance on the street. And Lance is more than gracious, has agreed to address that. So Lance, I've stopped sharing so that you can take over.
All right, hopefully, morning Planning Commission, Lance Overstreet, City Engineer. I'm hoping that you guys can see my screen here. Should say Planning Commission, August 17th. And
Yes,
one of
sir.
the reasons that we were wanting to bring this to you guys is largely being driven by the sewer trunk main project that is going to be going on out at Lake Nasworthy. As you guys well know, that sewer trunk main, currently we kind of have a moratorium on development out there in the lake area. And one thing that we've been looking at is, okay, if that if the moratorium for development goes away, how is that going to impact things in the future? What kind of areas do we have some deficiencies? What areas should we be concerned about? And just looking at how that all stages in long-term plans. One of the things that has kind of come up on a couple of occasions is the South Concho Drive. And as you guys well know, we have the newer Lakeshore Estates that is expanded up on the north end of South Concho Drive near Knickerbocker. And one thing that we looked at in terms of how this South Concho Drive is functioning, and as well as what the current right-of-way, it kind of makes it prime for the potential to be looked at for raising the classification up from it. One thing that we do have is we have already an 80 to 100 foot right-of-way throughout the corridor, and everywhere that we don't have that 80 to 100 foot right-of-way, it is actually abutting properties that aren't platted and or abutting properties that are already currently owned by the city. And so what makes that kind of prime is that there would not necessarily be a need to go into any of the homeowners that are currently along that have houses established and to do any kind of acquisitions of their current lots. And so really the right-of-way is kind of unique in that it is pretty much completely available, either unplatted and or already owned by the city. So any kind of expansions we would need in the right-of-way, it could easily be taken and done as the city needs to give up that property and or as some of these larger parcels were to come online. Now, one thing that really kind of has us concerned is this next slide where I'm showing is right down at the very end of South Concho Drive. You can see that we have over 5,100 acres of properties that are currently undeveloped. And if any one of those were to develop, the amount of traffic that is already congested along South Concho Drive is going to be increasing considerably. And right now, if you guys have been out there on that roadway, you know that it is a park drive. It is a 2-lane. It is in somewhat of a kind of a rough condition. There are very narrow road crossing or bridge crossings. There's a low water crossing. And the other thing that's kind of driving this as well from the engineering standpoint and the planning standpoint is that as we look at how this road develops long term, we need to be able to put funds aside and prepare for the long term and the capital improvement of what this roadway is going to be. And a parkway just doesn't really have a very defined standard. And so when we're looking at how do we long-term prepare for how this roadway functions, that also is going to mean is how do we look at, from a capital improvement side, deciding how wide this roadway needs to be, how wide those bridges need to be, the low water crossing. The other component to this is that there is a lot of pedestrian traffic and bicycle traffic that occurs on South Concho Drive. And honestly, with the amount of traffic that we have the potential for, a 40-foot pavement would probably, or a 50-foot right-of-way would probably not really give us the adequate amount of space to accommodate the traffic and actually to be able to plan and accommodate for the pedestrian implements. And so what we like to have is we like to have dedicated pathways, dedicated bike lanes. If you put a couple of bike lanes into that roadway structure. It just is going to mean that we're going to continue to just have a 1 or 2 lane roadway each way, and it's already really functioning in a lot of sense as a collector, because we do have a couple of these small pockets of subdivisions that are dumping onto it and things like that. So what I have here is just shows you the 5,100 acres. If those lots were to develop in a 1 acre environment, you're looking at around 500 homes up to 20,000 homes, just depending on really how that all develops. It could be a very high density or low density, just depending on how things go. One thing that we have had discussions on is at some point, would that development actually end up dumping out onto Knickerbocker, and maybe we're wasting our time. And so what we have also looked at is where the current infrastructure is. And so this next slide here is actually showing you where the water main is, and you'll see that there's already a 12-inch water main in South Concho Drive. There is nothing water main wise out past the airport. And so as a developer and as someone who would be looking at developing, you're going to want to find areas that already have infrastructure somewhat in those areas for you to be able to tie on into. And you can see here at South Concho Drive, there is already a water main, a 12-inch water main there. You can also see that the sewer main actually goes out to the very end of South Concho Drive as well. Now, it does not make the corner into the Las Lomas and South Country Club Road at this time, but it is right there and able to be connected into for all of those properties that I kind of highlighted a little bit earlier on this. Additionally, we kind of did some numbers and just said, okay, if one of these developments does go in, and say we have a 2,000 acre development go in, you know, are people going to want to go down South Concho Drive, or is it going to be faster to take South Country Club Road and come back around the other way? And so we kind of ran the numbers going to that corner of Knickerbocker Road, right there where the Jacks is, and you can see that if you take South Concho Drive, even with those speeds being lower, it is going to be considerably faster going to that. We also too have the opportunity, and we're seeing a lot of movement towards Twin Mountain Drive, and the possibility of Twin Mountain Drive being extended all the way to 67. And that would also too kind of direct people in that Las Lomas area and in that future possible developments, even using Knickerbocker Road even more. Now, I know a lot of the residents had concerns about some of the speedways, the condition of the road, things like that. And I will tell you that the city is not planning on jumping on this and making a development that's going to happen very soon. We really are trying to potentially set ourselves up in a position to where in the long term, we can, if need be, as development drives it, have the ability to be able to put in a roadway that would meet that demand. It would continue to have the slower speeds because we do have residential directly abutting to it. And so you'll see in certain parts of town where we keep the speeds slower, where we have residents right up against it, and how that kind of develops long term. As far as the operations, I know a lot of people have said, well, we can't even get Concho Drive built out and maintained appropriately now. How would we be able to do that as it gets developed long term? And a lot of that is funding. If we know that a roadway is going to need to be at a higher construction standard, then we start looking at setting funds aside for that in our capital improvement and things like that to get those to those standards. And so that's some of the things behind it. Also too, as you guys well know, there is an accepted pedestrian plan and approved bike plan, and that does actually show it also too on that drive as well. And so it currently does not function with the current standard as it is to be able to accommodate that in the long term either. And so there's kind of several reasons why we're looking at this. One is we have already seen a lot of inquiries on different properties around the lake as this sewer trunk main is getting closer and closer to being constructed. As I mentioned, South Concho Drive is already functioning as a collector, and I don't know if you have been there and gone down South Concho Drive yourselves during the rush hours or at that 5 o'clock time or those morning, but traffic is queued up and stacked up pretty heavily. Some of those turns are very sharp. And having the additional right-of-way would allow us to kind of remedy that in the long term, especially if we see continued development that way. And the other concerns that we have, as we mentioned, just planning for this, being able to set the standard as to how it's going to be constructed, the width and the budgeting of it is really also helping to drive this as well. Again, no changes immediately. It just really sets the city up in a better position long-term to be able to handle the planning and financing and things like that for the pedestrian and connectivity as that area continues to grow. So I'm sure that you guys probably have a lot of questions.
I have one, Lance. Can you give me the eastern boundary of this dedication? It doesn't go all the way to 277, does it?
I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I believe Sherry has that image of exactly how that looks.
Okay.
But as Sherry is pulling that up, you are correct. A portion of Country Club Road that's already within the city limits is already a collector. So this would be from the existing collector, then around through the lake. So I don't know if y'all remember.
Okay. So it's already been designated
as a portion.
The stretch of Country Club Road has already been dedicated or designated as a collector. Excuse me.
Yes, it is. It's a major collector. This will be just a continuation of that.
Okay. Anyone else have questions for Lance or the staff? All right. I'm going to open this up for public comment.
Sherry, if you will stop sharing your screen, I don't believe we have any public comment unless somebody.
Yeah, it's not responding to me real
Okay.
well.
There you go.
Okay.
And as we stated, you did receive some letters in opposition, and we had one in support as well, addressing some of those concerns, but you should have received those in your email this morning.
Right. And I think the total number is a 9 against and 6 for in what you received.
All right. I'm going to close public comment and open the discussion amongst us, or ask someone to make a motion. This is kind of a big deal. Are there no other options for connectivity to Knickerbocker from that undeveloped area where these rooftops could be added?
That is correct. Right now, the closest connection is 277 and or Knickerbocker. And so, you know, there is some talk of some very long-term plans of a major bridge that would connect Country Club Road up to Foster Road. But I would tell you that that's probably even further out than anything like that. And there again, that's going to be taking the traffic back towards Country Club Road, and people being as creatures of habit, we're going to look for the quickest, fastest path to those things. And so that is why one reason we kind of ran that little traffic scenario of how long from the end of there at Concrete Pavilion, how long does it take to go around and take the loop, and how long does it take to go to Knickerbocker, and it's almost a third less time to go down South Country Club Road, South Concho Drive, sorry.
Well, and Travis, again, to your point, if y'all can kind of picture this area, the airport is to the west of most of these large properties. So there would be no cutting through the airport. We would have to go kind of around the airport.
Go south of it. You'd have to go south of it to do it.
Possibly. And possibly. And large chunks of those lands are owned by I believe it's a school. So it's a large portion that are owned by that. So I don't know that those would develop anytime soon. So, we're trying to find a way to get most of this traffic out to Knickerbocker or to 277 efficiently, as well as providing for bike and pedestrian facilities. So this would allow the expansion.
Okay.
And just so that way the commission knows, our plan is not to remove the park that's there. We really want to try to maintain that the best we can. We just know that this has the potential, if one of these, several 100-acre tracts to develop, you could see a considerable amount of more traffic on that very small roadway. And at that point, now we've got issues with the fact that pedestrians don't have a room to move along with the traffic. And that's really our concern, is trying to see to it that we set this up to be able to handle all of that in the long term and do it efficiently.
Okay. Anyone else have thoughts they'd like to share? All right, does anyone wish to make a motion? Does anyone want my thoughts? I'm very familiar with this area, and it is the road that's there today is not sufficient for the traffic that's going to be coming from this subdivision development. Even I would maybe argue even the subdivisions that are under construction today. The biggest concern I have about widening that road is the increase in traffic and the potential impact that it has on limiting access to the lake. You've also got houses on the lake frontage side along a good stretch of that would probably be impacted by a widened road. And I'm sure the city would figure out ways to create a safe access for them to get on and off of the road. This is a tricky area, and I'm not sure what to do with it, to be honest with you.
Well, and I think, and Lance may can speak to this more, as the road develops, it will probably take some straightening. I know it's kind of windy at this point, so letting or acquiring the larger right-of-way would allow for possibly a better alignment of the road as well.
Okay.
So that was going to be my question, is there, how wide is, the road is very narrow in a lot of places through there. Is there a right-of-way already, or is the city going to have to purchase right-of-ways to widen the road?
Yeah. Currently, Ms. Jackson, there is actually 80 to 100 foot of right-of-way existing up around the lakeshore area. And then as soon as you clear the lakeshore area, if there is large parts of that are actually already owned by the city. And so we are not necessarily looking at having to acquire any right-of-way from any of those current residences that have houses. Some of those larger lots, though, as we look at if they become to get replatted and they get subdivided, there may be a desire for us to pick up a little bit of right-of-way to primarily fix the sharpness of those turns, and or to possibly shift that right-of-way a little bit from the lake, so that way we can maintain and secure that parkway feeling. And so, but we're not looking at having to acquire any right-of-way. We could actually come in right now and actually put in a 40-foot wide roadway without acquiring any right-of-way. It's just that we would not then have the right-of-way to do any kind of pedestrian movements along with that right-of-way as it is defined right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
The one thing that we did hear from the surrounding property owners was that this used to be an area where they loved to walk. And it is an area where bicycle riding is still done now. And the real positive of this change would be the ability to plan for that and accommodate that.
Yeah. That would be very nice. I agree. Okay. Anyone else have thoughts or wish to make a motion?
I am going to make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the city staff's proposal of the Master Thoroughfare Plan Amendment. All in favor, say aye by show of hands. And opposed?
6-0.
Okay. Text amendment. City Council has final authority for approval of text amendments. Consideration of a text amendment to the City of San Angelo Code of Ordinances, Section 5.01F, additional standards for manufactured homes.
Okay. Staff sent out to you a copy of the existing area that we're talking about amending. And do I have that on the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just the red lines.
I have the red lines. All right. It's hard for me to tell down here. And the reason behind this, it came about with the changes at the state level that occurred in 2017, and then the increased amendments that occurred in 2019. What has to go away is those areas that are not in compliance with the state law. We're not proposing to really add anything at this point. We are strictly wanting to make it compliant with state law. So we're removing for those areas where there is an existing manufactured home, the requirement that a special use is necessary before that can occur. What will go into effect instead of that is that the applicant can replace an existing manufactured home with a home that is as large as the existing one or is newer than the existing manufactured home. The second major change that we had was the requirement. Let's see if I can get this back up. My screen went to sleep on me. No. Hillary, I don't seem to have that. Can you?
Yeah, let me pull it up. Just, you can keep
just the
explaining
one
it.
slide, yeah.
Okay, just keep explaining and I will figure out.
So what's required under state law is if someone lives in a mobile home 1974 or earlier, they can replace it with a manufactured home without any action at all other than to come in and get a moving permit. That is, complies with both the federal and the state mandate. So what we are providing is what agrees with the state law, doing away with a special permit, but requiring that within 1 year of their having removed a manufactured home, they can replace it with one that is newer and as large or larger than what was there. After a year, they lose that ability.
So I think Sherry's been over most of it. Again, once you see, I know she also emailed out the very basic black and white version that'll be the final draft of this. It's very simple. Basically just removing the special use permit out of the existing ordinance and cleaning it up just so we're in compliance with state law. Does anyone have any questions for Sherry or myself?
That would just take care of that issue that we had last year or year before where the man had to come in and jump through hoops in order to replace what he had.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
That's
okay.
Right.
Great.
So he'll just have to prove that it's newer and at least the same size. And then once that has occurred, they can get a building permit, whatever permit they need.
Okay. Anyone else have questions for the staff? Otherwise, I'm going to open it up for public comment. All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case, please come forward.
I do not believe we had anyone signed up for public comment.
No.
All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone have thoughts or wish to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the city staff. All in favor, say aye. Show of hands. Aye. Opposed?
6-0.
Okay. Director's report.
Yeah, the only thing I have is something I could probably pre-record and just play every meeting. The governor has extended the disaster declaration another month through September 7th, I believe, which doesn't quite put it to your next meeting. So it's just another wait and see. We assume that he'll keep extending that for another 30 days at a time. But we'll let you know one way or the other if at some point we do get to go back to in-person meetings. But for the foreseeable future, we expect to continue this as we're doing it now. That's all I had.
Okay. Thank you, John. Future meeting agenda and announcements. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is tentatively scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. on Monday, September 21st, 2020. Adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye, or show of hands.
6-0.
Opposed? 6-0. It's 10:52 a.m.